All right, today we're jumping into a very specific and honestly pretty challenging prophetic interpretation of a biblical text, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We're going to walk through the source material's arguments step by step to really understand its claims about the end times.
And right here, this single verse, this is the linchpin. According to the source material, everything we're about to explore hinges on how you interpret these specific words. It is the absolute foundation for their entire argument.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at the core prophecy of apostasy. Then, we'll try to identify the deceiver it warns about and understand this strong delusion that's mentioned. After that, we'll see how the source connects all this to some modern traditions, and finally, we'll meet the remnant, the group who supposedly resists it all.
So let's dive into part one, this prophecy of apostasy. This is really the central claim, and it's a bit counterintuitive, but it's what anchors the entire argument.
Here's where we see the big clash in ideas. For a long time, many people have been expecting a huge worldwide revival, right? The idea that churches will be filled and whole nations will turn to God. But the source material we're looking at claims the exact opposite. It says the Bible doesn't promise a global awakening, but actually warns of a global, catastrophic falling away from the faith.
So, what do they mean by falling away? Well, it's not just a few people losing your faith. In this interpretation, it's a massive, widespread abandonment of what's considered biblical truth. And this, they argue, creates the perfect environment for a huge deception to take hold.
Okay, so let's move on and see how this builds. It's the logical next question, isn't it? If there's a great deception coming, who, according to this source, is behind it? At the very heart of this story is a figure called the Man of Sin, also known as the Son of Perdition. He's basically presented as the ultimate villain who shows up and grabs power precisely because of this widespread falling away. The source pulls several key characteristics right from the text to paint a picture of this figure. He's defined by his opposition to God, his total self-obsession, and his power actually comes from Satan after some mysterious restrainer, some kind of force holding him back, is taken out of the picture.
And this is the verse where they get all that from. The source takes this very literally. It's describing someone who doesn't just defy God, but actually tries to replace him, going so far as to sit in a temple and declare that he is God.
This brings us to a really crucial question, and our third section. How does this deception actually work? I mean, what's the mechanism that lets it be so incredibly successful?
According to the source, the why here is everything. People's vulnerability to this deception isn't because of a lack of information, but a conscious choice. The text says they received not the love of the truth. So, in this view, it wasn't that they didn't hear the truth, it's that they actively chose to reject it.
And that choice has a direct and frankly startling consequence. The verse says that because they rejected the truth, God himself will send them a strong delusion. So from this perspective, the deception isn't just a human failing, it's a divine judgment. So this question really gets to the heart of it. It's not about being unintelligent or just making a mistake. It's about a moral choice to reject truth, which then leads to a supernatural delusion that literally makes people believe a lie.
So let's move on. Up until now, this has been pretty abstract prophecy, right? Well, in this next section, we'll see how the source takes these ideas and applies them to very real, very modern practices.
The scripture gives this command to hold the traditions taught by the apostles. But, and this is a really big but for this viewpoint, the source draws a very sharp line between what it considers true apostolic tradition and other traditions it calls false. And here is where it gets very direct. The source argues that many of our modern traditions are not the ones the scripture meant. It explicitly calls out popular figures and holidays, like Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and Halloween, and labels them as traditions with pagan origins that are not part of the truth that people are supposed to hold on to.
So these things aren't just seen as harmless fun. In this framework, they're presented as practices of a corrupt religious system, one the source calls the Mother Harlot Church from the book of Revelation. The call to action, then, is for people to completely separate themselves from these things.
So, if the world is falling away and is caught up in the strong delusion, is anybody left? That brings us to our final section, which focuses on the group that supposedly resists all of this. This group is called the remnant. They're described as a small minority who hold on tight to the scripture, refusing to participate in what they see as a fallen, apostate church or a deceptive world system. and their ability to stand firm isn't credited to their own strength. This verse is used to argue that the remnant is protected because they were chosen by God from the very beginning, and that choice is proven by their belief of the truth.
As we wrap up, you can really feel the intense urgency coming from the source material itself. There's a real sense of desperation in a statement like this, the image of blowing a trumpet as loud as possible to wake people from what's called a deep spiritual coma.
And this is the provocative question we're left with. The source itself poses this dilemma. If God has sent the delusion as a judgment because people rejected the truth, then how is it even possible for anyone to wake them up? It's a challenging, unresolved point that really lies at the very heart of this interpretation.